Hello, 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 and welcome to hello, 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 and welcome to hello, 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 and welcome to Cartoon Kabala, 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 Kabala. Coming at you from the Elul Valley. It's fucking hot outside. Still. Unusual weather ranges amidst the pivot. Now, I heard an explanation once recently in a sort of big math mysticism book of the fifth as the thing that is the life force that emerges from the initial fourth. Let's say within the fourth is the fifth, and this is the innovation of the life force and the Shechinat El that emerges above and between the four archangels. And it is the thing that the finger on the yad, because the yad is Dalet, is four, and then the fifth that comes up through it is somehow also the first, because in the formation of things, the fifth is the actualization, and it's either the turnaround or the fusion, or whatever. But the sixth constructs a whole new thing that can construct whole new things, and this is, I think, part of the secret of why Virgo is Virgo. Now, I'm going to make an argument for obviously very old associations with this thing and concept, but I'd say a harvest prep thing that is inherent. But let's say before the harvest prep is the sense of understanding around harvest prep. Because what is Virgo relative to Leo, right? Leos are awesome. Leos are just, making it happen, just bringing it together. Leos are magnificent. And Virgos are also just as awesome, but a little more sensitive, right? The scales that emerge are the scales that emerge from her hands. But the self that notices and feels and processes the transformation is the self that feels and notices and processes. And this is sort of the blues thing that I think starts to settle in the popular practice of Elul. And I have to presume, or could imagine, or could presume, or have to imagine, that the custom in Babylon, maybe more than Egypt, maybe Egypt also, but maybe more Babylon, was in the month of Elul to do something functionally parallel, just because they do seem to like fast and mourn in Leo, and Cancer, cry for Tammuz. So what do they do for Virgo? Now, in the Babylonian calendar, they would double it some years. Just like Adar in the Hebrew calendar gets doubled some years, Pisces gets doubled, twice the Pis. So too, Elul, in even less often years, would be one of the other switch around things. I want to tell you guys the secret of Elul in the Bnei Yissaschar. And I want to talk about it in the context of the unresolved inspiration or actualization of Av. And I'm going to address it in the way he sows his resolution, which is in the consolation weeks in between the end of the dark part of Leo in the beginning of Av and the end of the dark part of the Libra thing in Yom Kippur, because these are very bound. And he makes an association between them. My buddy, the Bnei Yissaschar over here, Tzvi Elimelech of Dinav, noted Polish Hasidic master Kabbalah. He's got a whole thing about the end of Leo that I've been trying to learn for a while and have been overwhelmed by It's part of why I haven't given it over, to be honest, the intensity of the season, but also the intensity of the content. I feel like he's saying something and I want to get what he's saying now. And it's been a challenge because when I'm not talking, it's hard to understand. And this is part of the, I think, implicit nature that we learned of Leo in the system as hearing, Shima'on. Leo listens more than smells, I think, is part of the context. And even in those sort of parables from, what do you call them? Fables of Aesop. The lion is in dialogue. He hears more than he smells and expresses more than he needs to do in his herd. The lions roar. And this is very different from the entire Virgo concept, which is still expressed, but more directly. And I'm hoping we are able to engage it on these two fronts. Just one little thing at the end of Leo and one little thing for the beginning of Virgo. Oh, 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 oh. I'm just going to summarize the beginning of it because this essay is called The Dancing Maiden, Betula b'machol. Duvarnyan tuba, the thing that already happened, the very middle of Leo. Big relief, big holiday. Very famous. It's not quite so big anymore, but it's starting to get big again. And it was in the temple times, just the biggest and best. But it's past. I want to summarize just the littlest bit about it. עניין היום טוב הוא חותמים שאמרו בגמרא יקשו לנו למה דקה אז יצא בני ישראל לחול. It's a mystery why they would go out to dance right then. And I'm just going to summarize the first part because the first part is that good that it's just such a blessing to be able to summarize. Like the theme song to a show. Hello and welcome to She could say, okay, fine, because they let lots of things happen on Tu B'Av, but what happened originally? And basically, 40 days from the creation of the world is the announcement of the good thing that's coming. And this parallels the fall and the spring. This we covered in the last one. Okay, I don't have to repeat this too much, but it just leads right in. Because they would go out into the grapevines, grape fields for the harvest, like in Mamma Mia, Oh, there's a dancing festival season when they go out and just dance to be out there. Oh, תמם נכון אמר שיצאו בשואלים דייקה, אבל אמר שיצאו בכלי לבן דייקה. They went out in white, but why white? ופרטיש לכשתי big day say, דווקא big day צבעון. And on the other hand, specifically going out with colors, with a rainbow and range of colors, just wide range of colors. כמו שמאמר שינש נדם, דנים עד קשה מהו צורך נשמיענו, מהו יצא למחול. And why do we need to know any of this? What does it have to do with the custom? Or what does it have to do with the learning of this, the details of what they were wearing? Why is this part of the Torah? And of course, you could say there's a reason to dress in white, to symbolize and make it feel the purification that happens. Go out there, feel new, feel free. But I think this is part of the dynamic between Leo and Virgo, right? Leo goes out, feels free. And the blessing and curse of Shimon, right, is just the willingness to be like, yeah, I hear that. And this pivots to the realization in Virgo I'm not even sure what tribe it's identified with, but he'll tell us. Uh-huh. The combination of the letters for Elul comes out from the end of the pasuk. Hey, hey, vav yud. That's the order. Hey, hey, vav yud. Still split, but ladies in front. And good things should happen because. Mazel Elul Betula b'gematria Ema banim smecha hallelujah כבר ידעת תשובה נכינה בינה עימה ilaa על כן נכבד הרמז לחודש הזה אזכור תשובה יעבור עליה. He's going to try to explain everything around this one little border context. Understanding is the mother, and understanding brings us home. Understanding is the maiden dancing, as long as you don't understand her. And this is the check-in mechanism that is really ruled through Mercury, but is made of Venus, right? Noticing and feeling and checking in. And this is the degree to which Virgo is Venus in her Persephone aspect, and ultimately also in her Demeter aspect. Although you could say Demeter is the next thing, Libra, the judgment of the maiden, just the concern which is already matured because it's made of understanding. And this is the main difference, let's say, between the mother and the maiden. The maiden, I don't know her by definition. All this language to describe, is part of the problem of the human society, just the impulse to experience people as some kind of commercial project and product, like noticing a deep heart concern and feeling as a sort of accounting, right? As a sort of accounting. And it's fascinating, curious how the attempt to integrate into noticing and conscience and integrity is very often only possible through some kind of like a metric, some kind of a measurement form. Midot, the word for virtues, for sort of the way you are, or vices, which are also the way you are, is midot, measurements. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury because it is master of measurements, of measurement techniques, ways of gauging, ways of noticing in a way that protects and provides for and feeling. And I'm going to share this in the hopes that it helps describe that. Skip into Vav. בספר יצירה המלכות י' במעשה, וקשה לכתב את צרפן זה בזה. Okay, fine. I'll start a little earlier. I'll start a little ahead before that. I know I was off on the thing, but feeling into it, I feel like I understood that I needed to start from a little bit earlier. And as much as the understanding is its own insult, I have to apologize and somehow preempt that, and somehow post-empt, and somehow learn the right lesson from, if there would be such a thing, or at least notice and feel into a lesson, even if it's not the rightest lesson. And this is the danger of the Virgo accounting system that is made of its virtue. And this is the challenge of the Tshuva of Elul. Can't help but notice the core priorities that we're building around. Because one of the main challenges of Leo is just picking up priorities from the criticism of Cancer into the sort of expression of self of Leo. There's the noticing of what it takes and what we're not able to even begin to want to be sorry for, but also what we're going to have to do, what we're going to have to be able to do. And this is the beginning of noticing what we're really responsible for and what we are praying for, because the mechanism in the religion is the heart. And through prayer, let's say learning is a layer of directing, But then prayer, which is really the main thing that the Libra holidays wind up being about, especially Rosh Hashanah, especially the very beginning. But let's be honest, Rosh Hashanah is a cusp between the organizing heart of Virgo and the judgment itself that gets its whole own month. And this is part of the secret of the two twins, Ephraim and Menashe. But I don't know who this month is, and I hope he tells me soon. Here it comes. I'm starting from Hey instead of Vav. Forgive me, please. Just for context, Hey before Vav. Az tismach betula b'machol. Part of the source for the Dancing Maiden, referred to back before, because that essay of the Dancing Maiden is from his Leo discourse. Forgive me if I repeat myself. But here, in his Virgo discourse, he's starting just with that line because Virgo is the Dancing Maiden herself, already started being listened towards and looked at the beginning of the come down from Leo into Virgo, from the clarity and violence of Shimon into question mark, question mark, question mark. Let's see. Az tismach betula b'machol. And then the Virgo rejoices in the dance and so on. Jeremiah 31:12. Shamati, I heard. Ne'et shar b'sari. Harav Chasid Kadosh Moran Eliezer. I believe that is one of the Noam Elimelech's grandkids. I'm not sure. Eliezer from Lizhinsk, Rav Eliezer, who he's related to. Zidichov? I'm not sure. I won't pretend to know you guys. But I heard from him. Az tismach betula, hainu remez lechodesh elo, asher mazla betula, ne tismach. That thus rejoice the maiden means during the whole month of Virgo. When Jeremiah is talking about, he's talking about a rejoicing that is Elul, that is the whole month of the party part of the summer into fall. Before the fall really comes, there is a rejoicing inherent in the Virgo, in the way that there is just a rejoicing inherent in the heart of just, girls, when they want to just play and find a way to feel right, safe, and therefore excited, and therefore dancing specifically, which is action in its way. And by which I mean, as much as singing is yesod, dancing is malchut. I'm hoping he's going to back me up. I'm going to try to finish the sentence. Because here is what. So the word for dancing is also the word for forgiving. Machol. Just letting go. Just letting it rip, man. Just letting it go. That is what dancing is. Machol. A circle, but a circle of release. Which is what noticing and taking responsibility for is in its way. Ironically, taking responsibility for things is releasing them. Because you've got it. And it's fine now. Wouldn't have been fine if you weren't taking responsibility. It'd be a problem and a stress and a question. But once you notice what you're depending on and hoping for and needing to be able to do, this is accountability itself. And it's only done through Mercury. I think this is why. There's a return, let's say, at the integration of Mars and Venus, and then at the integration of Luna and Sol, is Mercury, tying off ends on both ends. And this is why he's trimesticus, right? Thrice blessed, because comes at the threes to hold them together. This is why he's worshipped on the roads with a minimum of 3 rocks, but then built on top of. This is Hermes Trismegistus, right? The thrice blessed. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Lahata, Lahata. Because what is the rejoicing of Virgo? letting shit go. B'machol, by letting things go, making things, just getting through them. I think it's partial language of chol, poking through, but machol, forgiving, letting go. Do you mechol me? This is the joy of Virgo, he used to say. Those are legends. And I read this, as the whole thing in Psalms about like just old guys and young guys together. So, old men, this is the righteous. They've just been steady, steady, steady. And young men, this is the penitent who just realized, and are just like a newborn person, finding a way, sort of a new person brain. The kids demand it from us nowadays to some degree, right? On some degree, you have to be a steady, consistent kind of right and righteous, and everyone depends on this. This is your integrity, right? But on the other hand, we need to be able to hear the demands that the kids have for us, the things the kids need us to understand or believe or relate to. And this is done by sort of being willing to be sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Being sorry lets me hear the criticisms of the children. Like, let's say no one else's criticisms matter. The criticisms of the children matter because they're the ones who notice part of the problem. And maybe they don't notice the cost of it, but this is the conversation and this is the invitation into accountability and responsibility that is shared, that is collective, but mostly in the self. The work is in the self, but the fruit is in the reaction. He's not saying all that. Sorry. Born like new, just suddenly able to realize something new. And he's understanding that we are all these things sometimes. There's a part of us that very deeply is steady in the things it's right about, our core truths that we're always right about somehow. And then there's the realizations of how and what else. And these make us new all the time. And these renew us all the time and keep us from becoming too old and weird in the aspect of the dancing maiden as a transformation tool, like a mercurial transformation tool, the dancing youth that makes us able to check in and take responsibility amidst. Oh, the new kids get all the cool stuff that the old guys don't always get, Maybe they get all the good stuff that the old folks get, maybe they don't even, but maybe they get so much according to their Rizal. And so this is all, he's just quoting another dude, but this is his Chiddush thing. Now from this thing we just kind of looked at, the Ofen Acher, on another, another side of it is בשמחת פרע שואבה, צדיקים גמורים משבחים ואומרים אשרי ילדתנו שלא בשעת זקנותינו. Everyone knows, on the other hand, at the parties in the temple, on the 7th month parties, right, on the Libra parties, Dafka, it was the celebration, the wine celebration, the Simcha Pecha Shoeva, the pouring of the waters, right, the watering out ceremonies with a lot of wine and partying, and they were complete tzaddikim, the best, wonderful. Oh wow, I want to be with their number. The good saints, completely good folks, praising and saying, "Yay for whoever, like however we got here." Yay, saying to each other, "Oh, your mom is so lucky." Yeah, your mom is so lucky, and not to be embarrassed in her old age because you're so wonderful. They would say to each other on these days because they were so happy and encouraging each other to be happy. But the thing they're praising was the old thing, but they themselves were the young thing. Well, they were praising the days of their youth itself. What do old good guys do? Praise the best of their young days. Cheers, l'chaim. And this is a little bit the process of accountability, right? Noticing the things you're not sorry about and you're so glad worked out. This is part of the blessing of Virgo and what Virgo treasures, because it's part of what Gemini treasures, right? The things that actually were good, the things we always felt right. Because whereas Aries is a little bit of a sort of reactive impulse, just of its own sort of curiosity. And then Taurus is the sort of ability to sort of feel into it and process it, take some time into it. And then the integration between that is its own insistence of what needs to happen. And then there's a sort of retreat from that insistence into a sort of reconsideration into the lunar. And from there, a reflection of the life that has been really just alive and coming through in the solar. And then there is a reintegration, again, a reconsideration that is a party itself, that needs to be through the agency of a dancing maiden, which is the hope and is the other side of the check-in, right? Before the check-in is made, as opposed to after the check-in is made. Because the dancing maiden is not traditionally not a mom for long in this paradigm. And this is part of the Persephone-Demeter schism, right? Persephone is not just Persephone for long, but then she is forever, amidst a context having to do with the interchanges and the seasons. Different ways to relate to the seasons. But here it comes. In the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, Tzadikim, we just praise, we just had such a good time saying nice things to each other, being really encouraging. And the thing they were praising was how good the mothers, your mothers, the mothers were, because they didn't have to be embarrassed in their old age by how awesome you are, my friend, my beloved, my buddy, bro, people, my sister. And they would both say it because the tzaddikim would praise the good old days and how good they were. And the Baal Tshuva would say, it's so wonderful right now that I found a better way to atone for the things I didn't realize were the problem. And this is maturity in a lot of ways, right? Noticing the things we lived from and appreciated and treasured, and what they cost and what they're about and what they say and what they demand and what they mean, and building and rebuilding our priorities around them. And this is part of the work and the joy of Virgo, right? Letting it go, partially in dance, partially in going through the things, just going through the things, doing them, taking care of things, getting on them, just going through the things, just doing them, making them happen. Because the weather is just hot and cool enough, and the day is just getting shorter so we can start to do things. And the days keep getting shorter. And keep in mind what a crisis that is. But everyone loves the old days, the good old days, the good old days. Everyone loves the good old days, the good old age. That's what the young men and the old men together. Just feeling great about stuff. Hen אותם שמשבחים ימי בכורות, הם אותם שמשבחים ימי הזקנה, כולם יעמדו יחדיו לפני אדוני, לחיים ולשלום, וזה נחמד. You know, if you're sorry about how you spent your youth, or if you're so happy about it, you can still share that. And it's what brings us together. Just treasuring the old days, the old age that you get to be in, where either you figure out a better way and a better, and can just get on it. Or, the whole thing, the whole war for life and peace. Can stand together before God for life and peace. Everyone feeling good about whatever they got to feel good about. The check-in, which is the letting go. The check-in, which is the dance and the release. I mechol you. Mechol you so much. Mechol you. Mechol you so much. Part, here it comes, you guys. And forgive me for taking this long, to take this long. בספר יצירה המלוך אות י' במעשה, וקשר לו כתב וצרפן זה בזה, וצר בהם בתולה בעולם, ואלול בשנה, Yad smo b'nefesh zachar nekeva. Think about that. A left arm, masculine and feminine. What does that even mean? What could that even mean? I will be honest. Of the stuff in the Bnei Yissaschar system, the one I'm most sus about is the organ that he uses as far as all that. There are some other ones I like more, but I don't have them here. But I do love the Bnei Yissaschar so much for just doing the work and gathering together the things. But yay for as much more as we have all the time. It says in the Sefer Tzira with the letter Yud, right? The original Yud finally emerged, right? The finally emerged face of the original Yud. Let's recall the first month as Nisan is started with the Hey, the end of the divine patronym. And right away after that is Vav, the other and next part of the divine patronym. And then it's a bunch of other letters. Zayin, Chet, Tet. Just very challenging letters. You know. And then the Yud finally comes down. Finally emerges. The original Yud, which, let's notice, is actually the beginning of all letters, because all letters come from Yud. They all start with visually a Yud, even before they're named. And I think here is a mythic intersplicing of time and space. The sound of the letters and the order in which emerged the sounds of the letters. I don't know what came first. I only notice what comes. And the sounds, let's say the vowels, O, A, E. That's not how it goes. A, E, O, down into a lower, stronger ordering impulses. But then there's the letters in the order that they emerge, which starts with the Hey, having there already been the initial creation cycle that they're also a little bit preemptively implicit in, like some kind of fully constructed string piece that just boings open all at once, where 3 and 7 and 12 are bound up in each other's corners inherently before they even were 3 or 4 or 7 and 12. And I think this is part of why the transition is especially curious. I think the seasonal transition parallels the creation cycle, where the living, cool, wet thing that emerges out of the dampness of the spring is then tested and tasted by the heat of the sun in the radiation of the summer. And this is part of the world experience of the thing they associate with the grand 12 extremes and corners that are part of the sort of pull-out diagonal mechanism of the 3 dimensions, to say nothing of the 4 dimensions or the 5 dimensions of preference, because preference is very personal, it's very personal. But too much is too much heat is too much heat, too much cold is too much cold, and adaptive mechanisms depend on finding balance. And this is part of Mercury's wheelhouse. Mercury and Jupiter, they're both balance finders. Whereas Jupiter finds its balance in the ideal before, above the sun, Mercury's working down here, finding work, finding tools, finding ways. Virgo in the month, Elul in the time, and action is the fixing of the month. Action itself, doing, making. So, it says he gave Yud to action and created for Elul, and this is a special time for repentance, right? Coming back, which we heard before he defines as understanding. really understanding the core priorities and coming back into them. That's something we can all do, right? Just lean into noticing our core priorities, our core values, no matter how much we might want to be defensive of them, which is to say, however much we might want to judge them, is precisely how much we want to be defensive of them because they're ours and because they are what we identify with, our core priorities from which we move and perceive, right? And this is what we trade for, and this is our currency, and this is why fusion is often confused with transfer in the versions of Sacred Sierra, right? Tsar fun as sort of like a transformative moment that creates something, say roof, alchemy, right? And Hemiran, flipping, an inversion of something already complete and weighed as the fifth, right? The thing after is still Tsar fun because once it's turned over, it's transformed again and becomes part of somewhere new. By definition, it sort of transfers into the new. And this is part of, okay, coming home. This is part of coming home. This is part of understanding. This is part of accounting. הנה אמרו במדרש ושמרתם מצוותיי ועשיתם אותם, נראה שערוי ממרם ושמרתם ועשיתם מצוותיי, מדע כאמרתם דרשו. This is a great time for tshuva, because you know what it says? It says in the Midrash, and you kept my mitzvahs and you did them. Doing is noticing, right? It's a little Midrash he quotes that connects, you kept my mitzvahs and you're doing them. And there's even a little thing, it looks to me that like it's a question for him. If the thing says, and you did it, you kept, and you did them, the mitzvahs, and what it's saying, even at the simplest, is something you guys can look up, is what he literally says here. A level I make you, that is as if you did it yourselves, as if you did it yourself, made the things happen, right? Made up. When people fix and do a thing, it does feel like a personal accomplishment. I did the work, let's say, showing up for something, being present, let's say, as the essence of responsibility and accountability, right? What is accountability even? What is responsibility even? Most of what we really experience it as is someone's willingness to be present and be like, yeah, I'm sorry. Isn't that curious? Humans. As if you did it yourselves. And so it's also about the Baalei Tshuva, the people who take responsibility to themselves, the people who couldn't have been woke the whole time, but are willing to awaken and are willing to notice now and be made new by the things they can accept when they let themselves accept and dance into and accept, machal. Because machal is also to let it in. I mechal you. הנה חדש הלא, במיוחד התשובה, מנסים דבר לתשובה כבריות חדשות, וכאילו עשו את עצמם. And this is what it is, to take responsibility, is to really feel like you did something yourself, and that you are yourself a new thing. And so this is also that concept of Virgo, right? To suddenly feel like that dancing little girl, made new by our willingness to be new. And so there's a connection with Elul, shaychus Elul, maseh, of action, bitzar bo Elul, because to do things and be involved in the work feels like being new, feels like being a kid dancing again. And this is the beginning of understanding, through encounter, through action. The Yud. Why is the Yud the beginning of action? Because the Yud is the essence, the Gelam of creation, the sort of prime materia of creation, little dots, a little tiny just dot that is really the beginning before the first thing, but only expressed here after all the way through the sixth thing in the cycle, in the zodiac cycle, after the seven in the divinity cycle, after the three in the polarity cycle, but before the rest of the 12. Ah, the prima sort of little dot material. Everything you write is made of like a little dot. Even every line is made of a dot. And so that dot has everything in it. That dot includes everything in it. Ah, למיוחד לתשובה מנסים על התשובה קביעות חדשות גילוי עצמם. הנה, אותי נקודה גאה מקבלת כל הצורות. It receives all the shapes. עיין בספר ברית כהונה עולם, he suggests. ויכתוב על לוחות במכתב הראשון את עשרת הדיברות. Right? There's 10 commandments, but they're all just heard in one little sound, in one little letter. Because Yud is also 10. אנו מספר 10 די קשוק מספר יוד, אות יוד הוא נכתב הראשון. And the 10 commandments starts with a yud. I am God. Yud, as is known. I want to keep going to this, but my computer's about to run out of battery. We'll come back to it, you guys.